Got dreams of being a professional podcaster, but have no idea what you're doing?
This is impossible.
That's about to change.
A new kind of school.
Welcome to the Pod School Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the show. Today I want to talk about how to end your episodes, how to get the F out of people's ears without just going, okay, so guess that's it. Bye. Ending your episodes can be awkward sometimes. So how do you do it smoothly and easily so your listeners aren't thinking, where did they go? And they're also not thinking, oh my God, could they just shut up and get out of here? The end of an episode is where it is okay for you to ask something in return of the people who've come to hear you. In wanky online marketing speak, people call this a call to action, which is essentially just asking your audience to do something. And it can be a bunch of different things. It doesn't have to be salesy or selly or be asking for anything in particular. It's just about deciding where you want people to go and what you want people to do after they've listened to your content. If you've got a show that's not about education, it's just about entertainment, then it might be as simple as just heading to your Facebook page to say hi, to join the community, to share some funny memes, to share some stories that might work well on the podcast that you could talk about. It could be all about building your community. If you're talking about a bunch of different things and your audience would benefit from actually knowing where those links are and having a centralized location where they can find all the information that you've spoken about in your episode, then you can point to your show notes page and make sure that with each episode, you've got all of the information that you spoke about in that episode detailed on one page on your website so people have somewhere to go to get all that and they don't have to carry a little notepad around when they're listening to your show. Obviously, easy ones and ones that you will have heard a million times over are asking people to subscribe to your show. If you've never had a clue why people do that, it's basically because if they're subscribers, your show will automatically show up in their feed. So it's not like they have to keep reminding themselves to go back to your page or your website or back to you on iTunes and find you and listen. If they're subscribed, then the shows will automatically download to their podcast app. So that's really the holy grail when it comes to listeners, because you want people to constantly be sort of dished up your content without them having to go and snoop it out. Obviously, while you're in the subscribe mode, it's usually good to ask for a rating or a review because that will obviously help your rankings in iTunes and make you look like a show that actually deserves to be featured and profiled because your audience are really enjoying what you're doing. So that's another thing that you can ask for. You can also ask people to share your show. You might be able to provide links for them on the show notes page, or you might have a really simple link that you've created via Pretty Link that you can just tell your audience about that they can share. So make sure you encourage the people that love your show to tell other people about it because you really want more people to find the content that you do. You could point your audience back to a website more generally, like I do. I usually just point people back to the Pod School Podcast website. I have a pretty good search function on my show notes pages, so I usually detail what word people need to search for to find the show notes page for that episode rather than detailing a different website or URL every single time. And on that website and on that web page, you can find all of the links to my online podcasting course and my podcast guide. So everything's kind of in one place there rather than having to point someone to a bunch of different areas. It is really nice to sort of mix things up at the end of your episode, so not do the same outro or the same end every single time. But if there's just kind of one area where you want to point people to, then it's okay to do that. If you are asking people to subscribe and also review and go to a website and maybe check out your Facebook page and share the show, then it's really good to pepper those through different episodes rather than listing things off at the end of an episode where people go, oh, well, they're into the outro. I think I'll just turn off now. You almost want there to be only a couple there so an audience thinks, oh, shit, I listened to the outro and I didn't even realize. You want it to happen quick enough that your audience don't get bored and you can just squeeze a couple of things in there that you'd like them to do and then you can get the heck out of their ear holes. One other thing you could do if you're doing an education style show is to have a special link or a landing page where people can download something that supports the content of that episode. That can be really helpful for people who are learning something and want a bit of an extra step or a sheet that they can fill in so that the information that you've gone through in the episode, they've got a place to actually write that down. Or maybe you've got a little guide or a template or an infographic or something that's going to help them take what you've been talking about and put it into practice. So that can be a really great thing, and it's very, very useful for your audience as well. So with everything, there is a sense of favor with this stuff at the end of an episode, because you are basically saying, okay, I would love you to do A, B, C, and D, or if you're doing it right, just A and B. Don't list too many. But you have to remember that this is still content as well. So the stuff that they need to find either needs to be something that they're going to feel like passionate about doing, like rating your show or subscribing, because you are giving great content. So everything comes from that starting place of kick-ass content that they really want to share and want to comment on and want to rate. Or you give them something even more valuable than the stuff that's going in their ears. So yes, the stuff that you're teaching them on the podcast is really important and interesting, but you're also giving them some more resources to go to afterwards that will help them as well. And that's just going to build people's trust in your brand. They're going to really be passionate about the stuff that you're providing and be more likely to do that rating and review stuff as well. So there's just a bunch of different ways that you can end so that you don't just have to say bye-bye. Sometimes doing that business sort of stuff can be a really nice way to wrap things up without feeling like you're not quite sure where things are going. And it is okay, because you're sitting down, giving people content for free, week in, week out. It is okay to ask them for something in return. I was going to say you're not asking them for money, but you can actually do that if you want to. There is a site called Patreon where people can contribute and basically donate to their favorite shows to keep them on air, because it is important to realize that for a lot of podcasters, because the podcasts you're consuming are for free, they're not making a great deal of money out of that. There's not a huge amount of money that comes through advertising. Yes, there are a lot of benefits to podcasting, but if you absolutely adore a show and they have an option for you to donate via Patreon and you really want to do that, then that's great. So that's something you can ask for as well. Don't demand it. Nobody likes somebody that's coming around shaking the hat and then when they say no, shaking it a little bit more. So make sure you're conscious of that, but that is actually something that you can ask if you want to go down that path. Thanks so much for listening. I hope that's helped you work out how to wrap a little bow on the end of your podcast episodes. You can find me at podschoolpodcast.com. See, that's how I end. As I mentioned before, you can find the links to my online podcasting course there, as well as the guide that helps you set up all of the tech you need to get your home studio up and running. I'll see you next week, and until then, happy podcasting.
That's all for today.